Ruby Life Pools overview and basically I'm just gonna talk about the dungeon, what I think is good, what I think is bad, etc., etc. So first off, I think Ruby Life Pools is a pretty linear dungeon. Unfortunately, it could be a lot more fun if they allowed for a little bit of route creativity. Unfortunately, you literally have to pull like 50, 60, 70% of the first hallway and then do everything besides the Thunder Dragon upstairs, and that's it. There's not much you can do. You can't skip the golems, you can't skip the mini boss without the tank pulling to the side and dying. There's not a lot of skipping in this dungeon, which I don't like. I think they really need to change that. I think the mini boss, sure, you shouldn't skip it. Should be able to skip it, sure, but at least remove the middle padding golem and remove the true sight on them, so you can skip if you feel like it. Because you shouldn't be forced to pull like all these mobs. Um, but other than that, the dungeon is fun. There is plenty of AOE opportunities, and there's plenty of kick and CC opportunities. I think the uh, the kicks, at least in the first area, are very punishing. If you miss them, you'll notice on high keys that they're going to absolutely truck tanks. They're kind of like Wicked Bolt in Halls of Atonement, so they're pretty strong. Um, I think CC is going to be very important in these dungeons. So for the very first area, you have something called, or the Earthshaper does a cast called Tectonic Slam or something, and you have to CC it or your group takes a absolute butt ton of AoE damage, and that's going to be really important to stop. You're going to also have to kick all the Frost Bolts, and in the second area upstairs, you're going to have to kick the Cinder Bolts, which are group targeted and tank targeted, so it could be both. So that'll definitely be punishing. The worst part about this dungeon, though, is the last boss. Yeah, the last boss tuning and the Thunder Dragon tuning. The Thunder Dragon is just absurdly overtuned right now. Like on a 15-4, I think the Dispel does like 130,000 damage or something, and it ticks for like 30, 40, 50k on the person who has it. So it's kind of ridiculous, honestly. That's obviously just a numbers thing. There's not much to say about that. It's just gonna get nerfed. The Fire Dragon is very balanced. I think it's actually a good design. I think it actually could do with a buff on the Molten Blood, since the Molten Blood doesn't really do it. It's the Molten Blood is their AoE. It's a stacking AoE that they do. The longer it lives, the more AoE it does. I think that could do with a little bit of a buff, because as it stands, it doesn't really do anything. Even with stacks, it doesn't really do much. So it's on the opposite end of the Thunder Dragon, where it's a little bit too easy, but the fire dragon is inherently a little bit easier to deal with, just on the fact that it doesn't do anything but tank damage or breath and a little bit of AoE damage. The thunder dragon does much more AoE damage. As far as boss mounts goes, the only bad boss is the last boss. So the reason the last boss is so bad is the dot does way too much damage. Um, the dot does way too much damage, and during the last phase, there's a big initial hit applying the dot from Flame Spit, and that brings you to about half HP on a 15. And that plus the dot does about 100k by itself total. It's just too much. It's just a little overtuned. Um, Also the dragon hitbox is kind of bad. It's kind of really hard to keep uptime, and it's really hard to move the boss. So I think that if they change that, the boss will be good. The first and second boss are good fights. I actually really like them. The first boss rewards a good positioning with room space, and the second boss rewards a good positioning with room space, positioning the ads correctly, positioning the boulder baits correctly. So I think that's good. I think this first boss is actually one of my favorites because it's a good mix of single target and AOE. So this first boss, she'll have two ad phases, one at 70%, one at 40%, but she will not like guarantee spawn them at 40 and 70. If she's in the middle of a chill storm, she will wait till after the chill storm, which you just saw there. She'll do it after the chill storm, then she'll spawn the ads. Um, same with the hailstorm. If she pushes to 70% during the circles, she'll do that. She'll do that, and then she will do the ad spawns. as you can die there because I got stunned. So that's one thing tanks have to watch out for is you get, when you're tanking these ads, you get a dispellable stacking debuff. If you hit 10 stacks, you get frozen and you'll probably die. You can Tiger's Lust it, you can diffuse it, you can dispel it, etc. Any movement removal will do it. Second boss, there's really not much for the tank to care about other than stacking the boss on top of the ads that spawn, and make sure you have a CD for Searing Blows. Searing Blows can be dodged, it can be blocked, and it can be parried as far as I know. So any dodge or parry should stop the stack. Block does not stop the stacking as far as I know. And the last boss, the Storm Slam, just does an absolute insane amount of damage. It does like 70% of my HP on a 15, which I'll show you guys at the near the end. I'm not going to show this whole like gameplay. I'm just going to show the important parts. So we're going to get into this next section right here. These are the Cinder Bolters I was talking about. So the Cinder Bolter, the Destroyer, the Big Fire Guy, and the Flame Dancer. So here, the only thing you have to worry about from the Cinder Bolters are the Cinder Bolt casts, obviously. And then the Flame Dancers do something called Flame Dance, and you have to CC them. Either sweep, rop, para, any of that to stop the cast. If the cast finishes, it will explode and do a lot of AoE damage. And you really don't want that to happen. So this is a part of the dungeon where kicking and CCing is really, really important. So there is I think two or three packs with double Cinder Bolters. Any of the pats, there's one pat and there's one natural pack, I think, with double Cinder Bolters. Those are the most dangerous packs because they cast very frequently. Even with long lockouts, they cast very frequently. And they get a haste buff. They'll cast a haste buff, and you have to either purge that or just deal with faster casts. But these are pretty much just like they're water bolters and gambit, but they're random on who they target, so just being only on the tank. The destroyers, the big fire guys, will do a AoE called Inferno. That's just an AoE initial damage and dot. Really simple. When it dies, it'll do a giant AoE that you have to walk out of. The second boss has an ad that literally does the same thing, except on the second boss it leaves a massive fire puddle where the explosion radius was. One other thing about the Flame Dancer before I forget, when it dies, it does something called Blaze of Glory, which is it's just spinning and doing a bunch of fire circles on the ground. You just have to dodge them. That's it. You can't CC it. You can't stop it. So yeah. You'll see the Fire Dragon after this pull. Like I said, this guy's really easy. You can pull it with trash if you want to. It's really not that difficult. He doesn't do too much. He just does a Fire Maw, which is a tank hit, initial damage, and dot. The dot actually does a lot more damage than the initial hit, but it's not too bad. It really isn't. You'll see here. Then it'll do something called Molten Blood, which is a stacking AoE damage. And he will do that breath, and that's it. That's all his mechanics. So you see, here's the Fire Maw. It's just a ticking dot. That's it. That's all it does. This is fort too, by the way. It's a 15 fort, so you can see it really doesn't do that much damage for a fort. And yeah, that's pretty, like, after this, the trash is literally the same. Like, the entire time, it's the same. It's just deal with the Flame Dancer, deal with the Destroyer, deal with the Cinder Bolters, and that's it. I'm going to skip forward to the second boss. Sorry, a little too far. There we go. So here's the second boss. So this guy is very, very simple. So the way this works is the ads will be baited on a player, melee or ranged. Usually ranged, almost 100% of the time it's ranged. And you will try to stack the boss on top of the edge. He will do an Inferno cast, guaranteed, and then he will cast the bolt. So you want to kick that as late as possible. If you're in a pug group, people aren't going to do that. That's how pugs work. They're not going to late kick. But ideally, in an organized group, you late kick as late as possible. And you want to either kill it really fast, but if you're killing it slow, you want to wait until the boulder comes out before you kill it so you can get a proper boulder bait. The reason you want to bait the boulders against the wall or the opposite side of where you're going to take the boss. So for us, where I'm facing right now, it's going to be right across from the flames. It's going to be the right side of the map. So you want to bait the boulders to the left side of the map. So here we're going to kill it, and we're going to run through the fire straight forward. And we're going to go to this side. This boss doesn't reset. It has plenty of room, so you can just kite her wherever you want. And yeah, you just want to keep this space conserved. Like, see that boulder bait right there? It's going to where you're not going, so that's all space conserved. This boss is literally all about space conserving. And that's it. That's the whole boss. There's not much to it. It's not a very difficult fight. It's just about playing smart, positioning smart. That's it. We'll go on to the next part of trash. So these guys right here, so I'm going to pause really quick just to explain this trash to you. So the little lightning guys have a shield on them. Once that shield falls off, they will do a charge that explodes when it lands, and they will die. That does a lot of AoE damage. You don't want to stand in that. You can also just sweep it, stun it, whatever you want with it. Any CC works, and it'll stop it. Then you kill them. The warriors will do a thunderclap, which is the AoE damage and haste reduction in melee. Kind of sucks, but what can you do? It just happens if you're in melee. And then the channelers do a lightning storm. So if you've ever done Maw of Souls, that is literally just like the lantern guys. It doesn't do as fast of damage, but it does a lot of damage. That's basically what it is. That's the whole point. So I'll just let you play this pack. There's the lightning storm. As you can see, it does an absolute insane amount of damage. And I'm most likely going to die here because everyone else died, but we'll see. Showing off Brewmaster self-healing a little bit. Also, the health pots are absolutely insane with Celestial Fortune, by the way. As you just saw, there is literally a full heal. Yep, and then we finally die. But yeah, that's the trash pack. I'm going to fast forward to show you a little bit more of the trash packs. So this next up here is going to be it's everything that I just told you about, but there's also going to be a flame channeler. So this flame, I'm going to pause it. This flame channeler does a thing. It just does a fire channel, and forever how much damage it deals, it heals as well. So if you're stacking, it's going to literally full heal them in one tick. You can just kick it. Not a big deal. You just kick it, and that's it for that mob. And then we're going to pull this, do this separately. The next mob, the high channeler, is like the big mini boss, you know. It does the channeling thing. It also does something called Shock Blast, and the Shock Blast does, it's just a dot on whoever it targets. You can spell reflect it, you can diffuse the dot that it leaves, and it does a bunch of damage. Then she just does the channel, and after each channel, she will summon adds, and then she will do Tempest Shield. Tempest Shield is a shield that has to be broken. If not, it will wipe your entire group immediately. It does like 500,000 damage, something crazy like that. It will just one-shot you. You have to break the shield or you wipe. Simple as that. That's it for the trash. I'm just going to go straight to the last boss. Okay, we're just going to watch the last boss. So this first troll guy right here, he has two mechanics. He has the tank slam, the storm slam, and he has the wind change. Or interrupting gust, that's what it is. He has three mechanics. So he has that, interrupting gust, and the wind change. So you see Storm Slam there, does a lot of damage. That was with Dampen up, and it did half my HP. So there's the wind change. And then here's the fire dot that I'm talking about. And so you have to, so you get it, you have to bait it either on the sides or against a wall. Just some space where you don't want, where you aren't going to go. Then every time he lands is a good cleave opportunity. Anytime you get hit by this fire breath, you will take damage, and you will get the Inferno Core dot, and it stacks. The more stacks you get, the more damage it does. So yep, just dodges Fire Breath. Same thing with walking in any of those puddles, by the way. It just stacks and gives you more Inferno Cores. The debuff that the Storm Slam leaves just increases the damage I take from it. Okay, and then at 45%, he phases. This is where you want to pop everything. So this is what I'm talking about. This is the Fire Spit. Literally half your HP immediately half your HP, and it puts a dot on everybody. Then it explodes, and that's how much damage it does. It does an absolute insane amount of damage. And this is the entirety of the last phase. He's just gonna, every time he flame spits, it does this every single time. Look at her HP. You pretty much need to allocate defenses for every single one of these. So ideally, how you want to do this, right? So you want to be around the same spot. You don't want to be stacked, but you want to be around the same area, and you want to go. You want to drop all these dots along the walls or along the sides to conserve space, and you just slowly move towards the exit to the room. And that's it. That's how you conserve space in this fight. So you want to, where I'm standing right now, you want to drop the initial debuffs on this side, and then slowly keep moving, moving, moving until you run out of space, or the boss kills you too. And that's it. It's literally just a rinse repeat of this until the boss dies. There's literally nothing else to this fight. And you see like the bait right there, that's what the first bait should have been on the, or the first drop should have been on the boss. You're gonna see me roll through all the dots right here. You see I took stacking dot there, and then it explodes, drops a bunch of circles, and then we kill the boss. And then I will fast forward to the damage breakdown. Oh yeah, here, let me show me live lording at the end. Just kidding, it doesn't really do much damage. This part's easy. Like if you live to this part, the tank can pretty much just live forever at the end. Then I'm gonna fast forward to the damage breakdown. Around 44k overall with a bunch of wipes. We had a bunch of deaths. We had like over 20 deaths. That should be bringing it up here soon. Yep, there it is.